The Joe Rogan Experience.
When I got reached out to about you was that you had gotten through a near-death experience. And I really didn't want to read into it at all. I just wanted to ask you about it.
Sure.
So something happened. You had an aneurysm that burst inside internally?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So, I mean, the medical description is I had an undiagnosed aneurysm, which is a ballooning of an artery at a weak spot. Arteries can dilate to get more blood flow, but an aneurysm is like one specific spot that for one reason or another is weak, and it starts to sort of give way, and it'll bubble outwards. And as that bubble grows bigger, and this takes decades, it's a very slow process, right? I have a ligament in the wrong place, and that set in motion a sort of vascular problem that resulted in an aneurysm, and they don't hurt. There's no way to diagnose. I mean, unless you scan someone's abdomen. I've always been super healthy, and so throughout my life, I just never had any reason for an abdominal scan. Right? I'm a fit, healthy male. Right? A fit, healthy person, and so I just never needed that look inside me. So no one saw the aneurysm growing. Right? And so at some point, the artery wall gets stretched so far that it will rupture. It'll just burst. And now you have an arterial bleed. So you know what that, if someone shoots you in the femoral or stabs you in the abdomen and you have an arterial bleed, your life is measured in minutes or whatever, or hours. And if someone does you the favor of stabbing you in the abdomen and severing your pancreatic artery, which is the artery that ruptured on me. It's a little artery, this thickness of a number 2 pencil. It's not a big deal, but it's arterial blood, right? I mean, don't stop that shit, you're going to die, right? And right. So if someone just like stabbed you in the abdomen, you rush to the hospital. The doc is no problem. The doc, if you're still alive, they'll transfuse you. The doctors know exactly where to sort of put their finger to plug the leak. It's no problem. The problem with an internal hemorrhage, an abdominal hemorrhage, is the doctors have no idea where it is. And your abdomen is basically a big bowl of spaghetti, right? Oof. I mean, right? And it's filling up with blood.
And they have to find where it's leaking.
Yeah, because the blood, if you're stabbed, the blood's going out of your body onto the kitchen floor. With an internal hemorrhage, it all stays in your abdomen. So it happened, it was during COVID, and we were in a remote area, an old house that we own at the end of a dead-end dirt road in Massachusetts. And it's so remote, there's no cell phone service, the phone lines are old and they short out when it rains. And my wife and I had a little bit of babysitting. We had, at the time, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. We had a little bit of babysitting from the teenage girls that lived down the road, that we knew the family, and so they came over to give us a few hours. And my wife and I went out to this cabin that's even deeper in the woods, and paradise, basically, right? And so we're out there, and in mid-sentence, I felt this sort of pain in my abdomen, like, ooh, what was that, right? Like, not kidney stone pain, but worse than indigestion, right? And so I sort of twisted and turned to see if I could work it out, and then nothing helped. And then I finally stood up. So I said, maybe I can walk it out. And as soon as I stood up, the floor just reeled away from me, and I almost fell over. What was happening is my blood pressure was just like tanking, because I was losing all my blood into my abdomen, and my body hadn't compensated yet. So I was just like my head was reeling, right? So I sat back down, and I said, was something I never thought I'd ever have reason to say to my wife. I said, something's wrong, I'm going to need help, right? And you don't want to ever have to say those words, right? And you're fit, I'm fit. It never crossed my mind that I would ever have to say that unless someone shoots me or something, right? But not in my life. I stopped war reporting. I gave all that gambling with your life. I gave it all up. I had a family. We're in this beautiful spot. Like, are you kidding? It can come after you here too, right? Who knew, right? So, she dragged me through the woods. I had my arm around her shoulder. I'm sort of like a stumbling drunk, right? And she's sort of dragging me through the woods, and she gets me to the car and puts me in the passenger seat of the car. And we're a 1-hour transport to the hospital. right? And I'm bleeding. I'm losing a pint of blood every 10 or 15 minutes. You know, my wife didn't know this, and thank God I didn't either, but I was literally a human hourglass, right? And she put me in the passenger seat of the car, and I'm lying there. Now I'm starting to go blind, right? Which is one of the things that happens when you lose too much blood is you go blind. She ran into the house. The sort of electric white just took over the world, and that's all I could see. Electric white. If you bleed out, that's the last thing you'll see. And then darkness, which is what I finally got to, was the darkness. But so she ran into the house, told the teenage girls. One of them ran out. The phone line didn't work, but one of them was able to get 1 bar of signal, like in one spot on the driveway, like 1 bar, and she called the ambulance. And the ambulance guys came, and you go into something called compensatory shock if you're bleeding out, and the body senses in its miraculous way. It senses that, there's a 5-alarm fire going on here, and we gotta tighten our game, right? So it literally shuts down vascular, like blood flow to parts of the body you don't need, like your legs and your arms, your skin, and it sort of hoards the blood in your chest, your abdomen, your chest, and your brain, around your heart, right? Those things go, you're dead. So it collects the blood around there and keeps it there through muscular tension, right? And you don't know you're doing this. But what happens is your blood pressure goes back up, and suddenly you're sort of back in the world. And I was no longer going in and out of consciousness. Suddenly I could see again. The ambulance guys get there, and they're like, how you doing? I'm like, well, belly pain, but I don't want to be a complainer here. I'm feeling a little better, maybe blah, blah, blah. My wife, and this is why there's a famous statistic, married men live longer. My wife is like, you know what? Because they were going to leave me. They were like, oh, it's a hot day. Drink some water. You're probably just dehydrated.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. My wife is like, no, he's going to the hospital. I watched him. He was in and out of consciousness. He couldn't stand up. He was going blind. Like, what's it take?
Yeah.
Guys, what's it take to get a guy to the emergency room? So anyway, they took me. My body stayed in compensatory shock for that hour that it took. And but I was losing blood. And then I got to the hospital, and my body couldn't hold compensatory shock anymore. And I went straight into end-stage hemorrhagic shock, which is you're dead in 10 or 15 minutes, right? And I went off a fucking cliff right as we got to the hospital. And they estimate my blood pressure was 60/40, which is like rock bottom. They estimate I lost like 2/3 of my blood. If you lose more than 2/3, even if they transfuse you and top you off with full complement of blood, they pump it into you. If you lose that much blood, there's complications that happen with coagulants and all kinds of things like that will kill you. So people can die of blood loss with a full complement of blood that they've gotten from transfusions, just because this chemical process gets initiated and they can't reverse it, right? And that starts to happen when you've lost 2/3 of your blood, which is right where I was at, right? 10 minutes later, I'd have been dead. And So they rushed me into the trauma bay, and the doctors knew immediately what was going on. And one doctor had this sort of large gauge needle, and she asked my permission. I had no idea I was dying, right? And he asked my permission to stick it through my neck into my jugular, which didn't look like a lot of fun. And I was like, really? Is this totally necessary? Like, do we really need to do this? I was like, why? Like, in case there's an emergency? And he was like, no, this is the emergency. Like, I had no idea, right? I'm 10 minutes from dead. I have no idea I'm dying. Zero, right? Thank God, because I would have been terrified, and I would have been thinking of my family, and I would, I mean, please, like,
yeah,
you don't want that, right? And so he said, this is the emergency. I was like, well, if you say so, go ahead, have at it, right? So while he's working on prepping my neck, and it didn't hurt at all, right? So if you ever have to have this done, don't worry about it. But while I'm lying there and he's sort of working on my neck, it took long. It felt like it took longer than it probably actually did. But while I'm there, all of a sudden, and I have to stop and say, I'm an atheist. I'm a lifelong atheist. I'm a rationalist. I'm not spiritual. I'm not a mystic. I'm not woo-woo. I'm nothing. right? And my dad was an atheist and a physicist. I have to say all this because of what's coming. And I'm still an atheist, by the way. But so all of a sudden, I sensed below me and to my left this black pit open up, this black abyss, like this infinite black void. And I was getting pulled into it. And it's not like darkness had taken over the world. The world was here. I could see the doctors. I was talking to them, right? Here I am. But the darkness was contained in this hole that was underneath me, and I was getting pulled into it, right? I didn't know I was dying, but I had this instincts of like a wounded animal. Like, if I go into the pit, the infinitely dark pit, I'm not coming out, right? Like, I just sensed, like, don't go in there because you're not coming back, right? And I started to panic because I felt myself getting drawn in, right? And then my dead father, appeared above me and to my left. Now, there's a whole body of inquiry of NDEs, near-death experiences, and I didn't know anything about this stuff, right? I didn't know anything about it. It didn't interest me. I'm not culturally prepped for anything like that. I'm not Christian. I didn't see angels. Like, I'm a zero in that regard, right? There's my dead father above me, right? He'd been dead 8 years. I love him. But I was not happy to see him, right? I was shocked. I mean, literally, I was, Dad? What are you doing here? Like, and there he was, and he communicated to me. And so what I saw, see isn't quite the right verb, but I don't know if there doesn't exist the right verb. I sensed/saw him, and it was his essence, his energy, his presence, right? It's not like I see you, right? It's like, oh, there he is, right? It wasn't with that clarity. In some ways, it was with a deeper clarity because it was his essence, right? And there he was. His presence was right there. And above me and to my left, it was like quite specific. And he communicated to me, again, not with words, but with some manner that I understood, that I can't quite explain what it was. But basically, the idea was, you don't have to fight it. You can come with me. I'll take care of you. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be scared, right? I'll take care of you. I was horrified. I was appalled. I was offended. I was like, you're dead. Why would I want to go with you? You're dead. You're the opposite of what I am. Why would I possibly want to go with you and be dead with you? Because I'm alive with my family right now. Like, I'm not going anywhere with you. Like, get out of here. And I said to the doctor, you have to hurry. I'm going right now. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was sort of outbound. And once that happened, there's no inbound. And I sensed that. I said, you got to hurry. You're losing me right now.
So what'd they do?
Well, they transfused me. They stabilized me with 3 units of blood. Eventually, I needed 10 units, which is a full complement of blood. And so let me just pause for a moment and say, please donate blood. Like, everybody who's listening, I'm alive. My daughters have a father because 10 people who I'll never know donated their blood. And when you donate blood, you are literally allowing another person to live. And one day, you might live because someone else donated blood. And doctors can't manufacture that shit. Like, if you donate blood, it takes an hour, it doesn't hurt, and your body will replace it in a couple of weeks. It's the ultimate free lunch. And
I think it's quicker than a couple of weeks. I think it's pretty quick.
It's pretty quick, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to get up to 100%, I think it's a little long, but whatever. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, we're talking about human life here.
Right.
And if you want to be part of something greater than yourself, it's blah, blah, blah.
Right.
All these things that we all kind of want. Like, how do I participate? Nobody needs me. I'm not part of anything. I feel lonely. Give blood, man. Then you'll be part of something amazing, right? And you might. So I give blood regularly. So at any rate, there's my pitch. But so they stuffed some blood in me through my jugular. I stabilized, and they brought me to the the cath lab, the interventional radiology suite. And what interventional radiology is, it's a freaking miracle, right? Like, 20 years ago, I'd have been dead.